Hi everyone, and welcome back to my podcast. I'm Stephen. I'm an ex-Royal Naval clearance diver. I did some salvage diving and I worked offshore as an air and saturation diver. The podcasts are really about my experiences during that period of my life. Some of them interesting, some of them quite sad, and some of them quite frightening, and one or two quite funny. This particular episode deals with the period when I finished my clearance divers course, and I was a specially selected seaman. That term never gets old. I was sent straight to a ship. A lot of the other ones went to dive teams. So we had teams in Scotland and about 3 or 4 down south as well, clearance diver teams. And we had a fleet team that went throughout the world. Whatever issues and problems, they would go there and sort that out. I was sent to join HMS Gavington, and she is a Minehunter, ton-class Minehunter. I can't remember exactly how many people, not that many people on board, maybe about 50, something like that, officers and sailors. Quite a small vessel. It's made of wood, so it's not the most stable in the world. It is a mine hunter, so its job is really to hunt for mines. Now, you'd think there isn't that many mines around in the UK, but believe me, there are a lot of mines. Mostly from the Second World War, but some of them from the First World War as well. And we have areas throughout the whole of the UK, and I'll mention 1 or 2 of these in the story, where we would specifically go down and hunt for weeks to recover Second World War mines. That particular job of diving and recovering or blowing up mines is great, and it's what we do. It's our bread and butter. So the Minehunter itself has a team of clearance divers, and their job, we have people on board that will scan. It's got some very, very good underwater scanning equipment. So it'll scan, it'll find the mines. We will then, in a Zodiac, an inflatable, with our diving gear on, we're already being out there. We know there's mines there, and we have the PO, and he's in communication with the ship. We have divers in the Zodiac, and we have a rope that goes over the front of the Zodiac with what's called a Diablo. It's a reflector. It's quite a large thing, so we lower it quite close to the seabed. What happens is the hunter will pick up the Diablo, and it will also identify the mine, and it will con us onto the mine itself. So they'll say, starboard 10, starboard out, we'll keep going, and then they'll use the word slip, 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 and we'll let go of the rope, and the Diablo will basically fall very, very close to the mine. We tie up, put our diving gear on. Well, we already have our diving gear on, I should say. We're straight in there, clear our bags, and we're down. We identify it. Yes, it is definitely a mine. We'll come back up, get some 4-pound packs, and go and blow it. Very rarely would we recover a mine. It's just not worth it. Some of these are very, very unstable. So that's basically the ship I'm joining. Small team of divers. We have a diving officer, and we have a PO on board with a group of about 6 or 8 divers. I can't quite remember. My father drove me to Ardrossan. It's a small town on the west coast of Scotland for me to join the ship. The ship was meant to be there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I arrived about midday. You like to be early. Only to find, I went down, there's no mobile phones. You had to phone the harbour master, and he said, I'll get in contact with the hunter and see what time they're coming in. They weren't coming in till about 6 o'clock at night, so I had the whole day just hanging around Ardrossan, which isn't a very big place. I had one coffee shop, and I was able to leave my bag there, and I was wandering around. It's not a great start. Eventually, the hunter comes in, and I go down to the harbour. And as I'm approaching the ship, they've got the gangway down, and they're escorting, the military police are escorting our lead diver off. He actually was an alcoholic, violent alcoholic. And I found out that later as we progressed, because he did come back to the ship. Anyway, he was getting taken away as I joined the ship. Again, not a great start. When I get on board, I find the diving officer is chasing one of the divers with a stick as a kind of jokey thing, which even now I find a bit strange, but there we are. So just to set that context, the Gavington had a big boxing glove on the front. The diving officer was very keen for everybody to do a bit of boxing. I didn't mind, I was quite happy. The only problem, well, one of the problems starts as when I joined the ship, I got my own bunk, like you do. And about a week into we weren't actually diving, we were doing some survey work. I get a knock about midnight. "Excuse me, you're in my bunk." A guy had hurt his arm, he'd been off and he'd come back. And because we were hunting, there was more people than bunks. And because I was last on, I basically had no bunk at all. I was sleeping in the electrical flat on a mattress and eventually moved from there to the diving shack, which is above the water. Very cold and miserable and noisy. So it wasn't a great start to that, to my my first hunter. But the first job we had was to recover I think they were Mark 8 dummy mines that were fired by the torpedoes, and that was near Fast Lane. Well, they'd lost these torpedoes, couldn't find them. Normally they're quite easily to recover, I think. We were called in and we were scanning the area and eventually found them, 2 of them. And that was my first dive. They said, "Yeah, okay, Stephen, you can pop in. I just want you to take a rope down, tie it off, and then we'll get the ship in to lift it." And that's what I did. But when I dived, it was about 100 feet or something, 100, maybe just less than 100 feet. But as I cleared the surface, I could see the torpedo. It had taken a nosedive into the sand. Now, these things are about 7 meters long and they're massively, just jet black. And it had bedded itself right into the soft sand of the seabed. So when I was coming down, I kind of immediately seen it. It was superb. Straight down, tied a rope on it, waited for the lift gear to come down and got it pulled back up. The next day, I think it was. Again, I had the opportunity to pop in. And this one, I was just lying on the seabed, jet black, but they are massive. You have no idea how big these torpedoes are. So we recovered them. It was a very good job. But then we were called to go to Belfast, and we were, some of the things I suppose we shouldn't talk about, but I'll give you a brief overview of that period in Belfast with the ship. We were there. When we arrived, it was quite funny because I'd never been to Ireland. That was my first time. So we're sailing into Belfast. And as normal, we all know white woolly hats, all very smart. We got on the forecastle, all lined up as we come into Belfast. And even then I was thinking, if somebody has a rifle, we're all dead. Well, 1 or 2 of us are dead. I think we shouldn't have done that, but the skipper wanted that, so that's what happened. We had tied alongside. There was a ship. There was another ship between us and the jetty, so we were on the outside of that. And then we were heading for Moscow Barracks, where the Gordon Highlanders were there. So it was some work. The Highlanders were to protect us. But we went up there and they invited us up for drinks and things like that. Great time, real Highland welcome. Even though we're Navy and they're Army, they really looked after us. Lots of drinks, lots of food. And the next day they actually invited us to play football. So can you imagine the Gordon Highlanders? They pull from thousands and we pull from less than 50. So we barely got a team. You know, I think it was about half of us had ever played football. Went up, we had the game, and within about 15 minutes, it was like 12-0. I just remember the Highlanders almost being like professionals, you know. They were just, it was ridiculous. Eventually, we spoke to the captain, and we said, look, you know, this is not going to be fun for anyone. You guys just got to slaughter us. So let's mix a team 50-50. And we did, and it was a great game because it was that nice, even balance. So it was a period of us getting to know each other. But we were always picked up by an unmarked van and taken up to the barracks. And one time we were coming up, we stopped outside, a car just comes screaming up and through something, not at us, but into the fence. It was like a double fence at the gate, and then screamed away, And I could see the guys on the gate, rifles up, powder, ready to go. It wasn't a bomb. At the time I had a look and check. They were just young guys that were just, I don't know what they were doing, but they could have easily been shot, that's for sure. Like I say, I don't think we'll cover a lot of that kind of bits and pieces we did with them. I think it's probably better left at the side. But one of the things I do remember, and I'm not going to go clearly into this one as well, I was on duty, so I was on the ship, and you're not allowed off the ship. I mean, when you're on the gangway, you stay at the gangway. I wanted to phone home. I had to deal with a couple of things, and there was a phone on the ship that was between us and the jetty, and it had a payphone. So I just thought I'd nip across and phone home. When I came back, literally it was like 10 feet away, but when I came back, there was a diving officer. Now, it's pretty serious if you leave the gangway. Pretty serious. You're going to get put away for it, if not charged. When I came on board, he was like, obviously, what the hell are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And he said, I want you to come with me and we'll go up to the folks. I want to have a word with you. And as I walked up, as I got round the gun, the Bofors in the front, as I turned, he just punched me straight in the nose, like full-blown, poof. I mean, I must admit, I was not expecting it. It was like full nose bleeding. I was like stunned for a minute. And he just said, "Don't do it again, you understand? Don't do it again," and wandered off. Now, after being punched, I was pretty annoyed, and I wanted to hurt him. And I thought, to hell with it, I'm going to get him. So I even as an officer, I didn't give a shit. I was going to, if we're going to have a fight, that's fine. But he took a punch at me without any warning. As I went up to him, I shouted at him, and he turned. And he just said, before you start, Hart, before you start, I know what you're going to do, but before you start, let me just say this. Would you rather have a punch in the face, or would you rather be charged and off the ship in jail? And I kind of calmed down for a second, and I thought, yeah, probably a wee punch in the face is probably better. And he just said, yeah, I'm just teaching you a lesson. And I learned that lesson. Still wasn't happy about being punched in the face, and I'll not mention that officer's name. He actually was not a bad chap. From a Northern Ireland perspective and our work there, that kind of finishes. The only other one was we have a sonar dome that does all the the scanning of the seabed. We put the dome on. We put a cover on the dome when we're not hunting, just to protect it. It's quite a sensitive equipment. I was asked to go into the water and just check the dome to make sure there was no movement before we left and headed out to sea, because we were heading to do some work. So when I was in the water, I dropped in, and at the same time we were talking about if not, we can climb back, climb a rope to get back onto the ship. It's not high or anything like that. So we were using it as a bit of an exercise. I dropped in, myself and another chap, and we were looking at the dome and the harbour, checking, make sure they were also checking to make sure nobody had stuck anything onto the hull, which would be a bit upsetting, like a mine or a bomb or whatever. Remember, things weren't 100% stable at that particular point. This was 1977. So, you had to be very careful. But as I was coming to the surface, I always remember this, I kind of turned and there was this thing next to me on the surface. And I kind of pushed it away. And as I pushed it away, I realised it was a dead dog. And it had the teeth, with it, it obviously swollen up twice the size, and its teeth were, and honest to God, I must have nearly screamed, because it was right in my face when it looked like it was about to attack me. I was pushing it away and battering it away, and as I pushed it away, the other guy came up, and he got it as well, so it's just a little story. It was quite funny. Then we attempted to drop some ropes and climb up full equipment. Just rebreathers and O2. It wasn't the larger bottles. And when we did get up, but on board. But like I say, it's not a great height. So we left there and we had to go out to do an exercise. So we go out and we have to do some shooting. So you're not diving, you just become a sailor. You're cleaning decks. If you're not working on diving equipment, they'll use you for anything. But we're on this exercise. We had to go and do this exercise. And we had jets come over. So my task was secondary movement of the gun. So I had this Bofors on the front. And we simulate. So we're all in there in anti-flash gear. We're all walking around like we've done a poo in our pants, because in a hunting scenario, you want to keep your knees bent, because if we do hit a mine, the ship will go up and it'll really knacker your legs. So if you've got your knees slightly bent, you've got a bigger chance of not damaging your knees. So you're all walking around like weird, like you've done a poo in your pants. And you got anti-flash gear on. And I was on the Bofors as secondary movement of the gun. If we lost power, we have a thing that you just turn and it generates power. So there's me, a loader, and a gunner. The gunner's all protected, but I'm just standing in the middle of nowhere with this little, two little handles that I spin as fast as I can. And it gives a trickle of power that allows the gun to be moved. And we've got a guy just shunting in the shells. What we have is, we have a jet, so this is all simulation, not real. You get the call saying, jet, force whatever bearing, blah, 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 and the gun turns round in seconds, I don't have to do anything, it's all under full power. Bang, 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 it fires brake up. So the jet, you see the jet come, woof, over the top, bang, 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 spin round, get it as it's leaving as well. And do this 3 or 4 times and everybody's happy. And as the jet goes and it's coming round for its second turn, from the bridge I hear, lost power to the gun, go to secondary movement. And it's like me, I get in. So I'm on this little wheel and I'm doing it as fast as I can. But you can imagine the gun's like turning like this. And the jet goes past us before we could even get and then we obviously we know it's coming back, so I'm trying to turn the gun, and then it's back before we can turn it again. And I said, why don't we just wait for it to come back? Because by the time we're never going to get it, And with the little group we were in, we were killing ourselves laughing. The bridge weren't happy with that, but it was just absolutely ridiculous, because at the same time as the ship's doing a zigzag, it was just a joke, We might as well have just stayed where we were, waited for it to come back and then fired. But this movement, the gun to try and move with it, it was just taking far, far too long. Like I say, I wasn't getting a great deal of sleep. I was either sleeping in the dive shack on the upper deck, or I was in the electrical area on a mattress. So not great. Plus, as you know from one of my last videos, podcasts, I was being quite sick, so I continuously felt pretty ill as well. Myself and another chap, John Boy Green, both of us blonde, blue-eyed guys, we were obviously about to start hunting, and we're in the middle of heading down towards Blackwater Thames estuary. So we're there, and it was a big swell. And they said, right, you and you get your gear on, and I want you to go in. There was like a wire that we had to undo, just that was part of the dome that protect. Anyway, it was a standard kind of job you had to do, and we were thinking, Jesus Christ! I mean, the ship was like pitching high. It was like the props were coming out the water, and where we had, it was lashing. We lashed. There's two rudders. There's two what they call active rudders, and they act for minute movement. And when we're at sea or we're steaming, they're normally lashed together, and we go down and unlash them, take the wire off so that we can start using these. Sorry, I just remembered now. So John Boy and I, we got our gear on, and we're at the back, and this hunter is just pitching up and down, ploughing into the water. So both jump off the side. We're in rebreathers, and we swim along the front, and they've got me on a lifeline, and John Boy's clipped to me. And I'm looking, and I swear, you could see these active rudders come out the water. And I was thinking, what the PO, and I'm not saying, get in there, bloody get in and get it sorted. So John Boy and I were looking at it, and we waited till it actually done, and then we ducked down, and we swam, and I grabbed hold of the active rudder, and John Boy came behind me and he grabbed me as well. So I'm there. My next minute, we're both out of the water, and I'm trying to undo the shackle to get the wire off. And the next minute, obviously, we're just ploughed back into the water again. And this wire just catches my mask and rips it off. I mean, like, gone, seconds. And I kind of let go, and I could feel John Boy let go as well, because it was like the force was unbelievable. Anyway, I've got my mask off. I haven't had time to close the valve, so I know there's water coming in. I can't put it back on again because the water will be in the soda sorb. So I'm up there, and I sort of turn, and I see John Boy going for the surface because it's now low, but I know that this is going to be, coming up. And as I'm ploughing away, it comes up and it whacks the side of my thigh. And oh my God, I don't know if you've ever had someone, dead leg you. It was like that. Horrendous. Anyway, I get on the surface, John Boy's there, and I just, the two of us were, and he notices, like, I've got, my mask is off, and he swims across, and he's trying to sort it, and I'm shouting to the guys on the boat, and they can see, they're all off the back, they see that I've got my mask off. There's a problem. So they start to pull me in. The only problem with that is that the counterlung's got water in it. So when they're pulling me, tied to a rope on my upper shoulder, as they're pulling me into the water, almost into the swell. So I wasn't able to get a breath. And I just felt like I was drowning. The more they pulled, the more my face was in the water. And eventually I remember sort of breaking surface and saying, I'm effing drowning, and then they realised, oh, right, okay. And then another chap, a standby diver, he jumped in and got me round. And to be honest, it was a bit shaken. And eventually we climbed up onto the boat, and I was sitting there, and my leg was like this big lump on my leg. It was aching, and I was a bit, shocked. I remember sitting there and thinking, don't want to go back in the water. I remember the PO coming over, and he's talking to me. He was like, remember, I'm like a baby diver. I haven't got vast amount of experience. And he goes, right, Hart, you're in the water next. You get your gear on, you're going in again. And I had that moment where I just thought, I need a bit more time. But he knew I had to get back in the water again. No doubt about it. I mean, even though my leg was sore, I thought, I'm not going to say anything because that would sound like I was wimping out, it was an excuse. I just didn't want that. It's not one thing you do. So I got my gear on again, and I was getting ready to go in. And John Boy was going in again. And he just stopped me. He just said, nah, it's okay. It's okay. It's the swell. We need to wait for the swell to go down. He just wanted to see if I was going to go in again. I mean, in my head, I didn't want to go in, be truthful. He just said, that's fine, lads, just get gear off and relax. The worst thing was that because you now have all this time to think about it, I'd rather have just went in then, but the swell hadn't changed. And anyway, down came the lead diver, and he was giving us like useless F's, you know, blah, blah. I'm going to go in now. I'm going to get this sorted and blah, blah. Anyway, he did, but only after the swell had done and we'd positioned the boat in a better direction for less movement. So he popped in, undid it, come out and gave us, like, you know, a load of crap for it. But there we are. That's another story from the Gavington. I'm not painting a great picture of the ship. And to be truthful, I didn't like the core of the Navy itself. You know, I wanted to be on a team. I wanted to be, you know, more time in Northern Ireland. I wanted to be in a bomb team. I didn't like being on the ship because it wasn't full-time diving. It wasn't full-time team. When we weren't involved in hunting and diving, we were just sailors, and I didn't particularly like that at all. But moving on from there, we moved down to this is one of the key areas where we did hunting, and it was called Blackwater Thames Estuary. So it was just outside of London. A lot of, you can imagine, mines were dropped there. Now there's all different types of German mines. The majority were ground mines. That means they were dropped by parachute, they dropped into the water, and they sat on the seabed. And as they moved down, they became, once the pressure came, they were primed. And these were massive, you know. These were like 500 pounds of Torpex, of explosives, some of them. And you looked at some of them and you thought, because they'd been rolling around the seabed, and they were made of aluminium or alloy of some sort, they were like gleaming. It was virtually, now you get the odd ones that are full of marine growth, but I come across a few that were like, whoa, that is like a brand new bloody mine. And you get other stuff, you get buoyant mines that had sunk as well. So plenty to keep you going, plenty to keep you interested. But once you're hunting, it's hunting 24 hours a day. You don't sort of stop for lunch. And you're in the Zodiac, and when they identify a mine, they'll call you, you'll be conned on to the mine, slip. We'd let the rope go with the Diablo, it'd be next to the mine. Immediately, boom, in the water, straight down, check that is a mine. Now, Blackwater Thames Estuary is black. You cannot see a thing. It was really primitive. So we'd go down, and all of them would have like fishing nets on them. And you go down, imagine you're sort of heading down, and we'd maybe have a little torch here, and it was just a little bit of, light, but it was mud. It was like, and it was about 100 feet, 80 to 135 feet. So you'd hit this mine, and you'd be looking at it, trying to judge what it was. But 90% of the time, even if it wasn't, we'd put a 4-pound pack on it because it would be identified again. One of the ones I went down, and I remember sort of, going down the Diablo and eventually, and there was just nets all over me. I mean, like that very fine net. And I remember thinking, the one thing is just to back away from it. Don't try to, spin your hands round, because the stuff can just fold over the top of you. So I just backed away, got up, and was able to move in at a higher level, move the Diablo, so I'm above it. But some of them are really difficult to get into because of the nets. They're very, very dangerous. If you got caught up in these nets, you weren't going to get out. Even cutting, 100 and odd feet, you haven't got that much time. So it was continuously, you're wet, you're cold, you're tired, you're miserable. So you can see from the clearance divers course why they do all that, because it always ends up the same. It's very similar when you hunt. I found it very interesting. I did like that hunting and dropping and blowing up stuff. It was really, really good. We put 2 4-pound packs on, and it really is a mine. It's a big bang, a really big bang. Great stuff. We kind of finished there, and we did a few other exercises and hunting as well, bit more hunting. But we were heading into Troon, and this is a true story. And I was nearly in jail for this one. So we went into Troon and we were going out to do a little exercise with NATO exercise for about 3 weeks. And I had a friend, Jack, he was training to be an actor in Glasgow, Royal Academy of Drama and Arts, I think, in Glasgow. And I'd said, well, we're going to be in Troon. So I went off, had a phone call with him. None of this mobile phones, you go into a booth and put your money in and at a specific time. And Jack was like, yep. He said, why don't you come down? It's great here. We're having dances and blah, blah. You stay with me. And I was thinking, 3 weeks on NATO, just steaming around, doing just practice stuff, not real mines. Or I can go down, I can leave Troon and get the train to Glasgow. So another night we phoned him again. He said, right, what train are you getting? I'll meet you at Glasgow train station. So what I did was I got a little bag, put my gear in it, and I went off the ship because literally if I went off with a massive bag, people would be asking. And I said, where are you off to with the bag, Stephen? I said, I'm going to go and get some washing. I want to get a load of washing before I go away for the 3 weeks. Oh, right, okay, away you go. I didn't. I went straight on a train, straight down to Glasgow, met Jack, and had a great time for about, I think it was about 6-7 days. I always intended to come back, but I just, you're a young guy. It's crazy when I think about it. I knew I was going to get shit for it. I knew I was going to get done for it as well. The minute I don't come back to the ship, I'm adrift. Quite a serious thing in the Navy. You've just gone AWOL, basically. I eventually thought, right, I have to come back. So I got a train from Glasgow back to my home in Tayport. Well, it was Lookers, and then my dad picked me up. I was hiding in the back of the car because Mr. Morrison, obviously the Navy had spoken to him and said, Stephen's adrift. If you see him, you need to bring him in. But Mr. Morrison had come to my mum's house and said, tell Stephen this, just go back on his own accord, right? And just tell him that. If he arrives at the house, tell him that. I don't want to know anything. So I took that advice after a real bollocking from my mum. My dad was a bit easier, but my mum wasn't. Eventually I got on a train, went back to Inverkeithing Station and then to Rosyth, to HMS Cochrane. Walked in to the main gate, explained, and the guy said, oh, you need to go to regulating office. So popped up the regulating office, and I was quite nervous going in because I knew I was going to get shit. So I went into regulating office, which is the equivalent of the police of the Navy. And this guy explained to this PO, and he goes, right, yeah. Right, okay, you're a diver. Right, you've got a bunk in such and such. Come and see me in the morning. I thought, they're pretty good. Pretty easy going. So I went, met some of the divers from the Rosyth team. Next minute, I'm out with them for a few drinks. In the morning, I come back, and this PO nearly leaps over the counter at me. You're bloody able seaman, you've been adrift from HMS Gavington. I was like, yeah, I told you. No, you didn't. Anyway, he wasn't very happy. And from that point on, things change you. You have to report every hour. I was working at the regulating office. They weren't treating me bad, but yeah, not good really. Eventually, the Gavington came into Rosyth. I had to go down, and before I went down, the regulating officer said, we're going down, do not speak to anyone. You understand? Your bag, your kit bag will be there, pick it up, put it in the van, do not speak to anyone. So when I got down there, all the guys, the divers were there, and they just threw my kit bag on the jetty. I went across, picked it up, and I could glance at some of the guys that were like, oh shit, you know. Anyway, get it and back up. And then from then on, you're told to report almost every, is it a couple of hours or whatever. You have to go to the main gate and show that you're in number 2s, number 1s, whatever. After about probably a week, they basically under arrest, and you can't leave HMS Cochrane. I get officer of the days, so this is where you start to get charged. So in officer of the days, they shout your name, you walk in, officer of the Gavington explains, blah, 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 able seaman, blah, blah, blah. Okay, right, captains, because it's quite a serious charge. So next thing, in a few days, I'm going to the captain's table to be charged. I'm in number ones, I go up there, and there's a queue of people outside the captain's office. I'm thinking, wow, I'm not the only one that's getting done. Then this chief looks at me and he goes, "You, stand across the other side away from these good people." Then I realise I'm the only one that's getting done, and the rest are all getting their badges for 10 years or 2 years or whatever. And so I had to wait for all them to go through, and eventually I'm brought. The chief's there and he's right, this is what's going to happen. I'll open the door, you march in, you take your hat off, you stand there, you'll hear the charge, don't say anything, and go out. I was like, yeah, sure. That's the way it works. So anyone, man, left, right. Stop, take my hat off. Now, when you take your hat off, you take it from the left-hand side and then you bring it down. So I've got my hat off. I'm standing there now. I barely remember what he said. Something about, yeah, he's already been 6 days under research, blah, blah, blah. And he just goes, right, loss of pay, he's already done sort of 10 days, blah, blah, blah. Right, okay, that's it, finished. And the chief goes, hat on. But because I was very nervous, I'd been twisting my hat slightly. And when I put my hat on, the name of the ship was at the side. And you dare not try and adjust it. No, you just put it on and he marches me out, left, right. And he gets outside, you effing, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you just get bollocked. But I couldn't believe it was like loss of pay for 60 days, whatever it was, I can't remember. But I'd already been under what they call arrest inside Cochrane, so they were like, yeah, okay. I thought it was pretty decent of them. And I wasn't going back to Gavington. I was going to join the Rosyth team. And that's where I'm going to leave it, because the next one is really my time on the Scotland Northern Ireland clearance diving team. They were based at Rosyth. I really, really hope you enjoyed that little story, or multiple stories, they tend to be. You guys take care. All the best.